My first husband died when my biological son, 14, Chris was 7. I kept a box of precious mementos including his class ring that I gave to Chris. It means a lot to him and he always wears it on a necklace, only taking it off at night to sleep. I eventually remarried when Chris was 10 to his stepdad Martin and he gained a brother Torin, 16. Martin has joint custody with his ex, but Torin spent more time with us after the marriage. Now me and Torin don't have the best relationship. Try as I might, he's never taken to me and has never really liked me, and he's told me to my face that I can't replace his mom, and sometimes he's rude to me. Things aren't that great between him and Chris either, as they're always arguing and Torin likes to pick on Chris. There's also been a few times Torin was supposed to make sure Chris got home from football practice, but instead forgot and left Chris stranded without telling anyone, and he's been forced to walk home a few times because of it. Luckily we don't live too far from the school, but it's still almost an hour and a half walk. A lot of the times Martin lets these things slide and tells me it's just a normal brother's thing, or that Torin is still getting used to me, and I usually leave it alone until recently. In the last week, Chris lost his dad's ring. We looked for it everywhere and couldn't find it. Chris has been in literal tears since he lost it. Today after school Torin and his boyfriend were hanging out outside and it was getting late, so I went outside to tell him it was time for his boyfriend to go home. Torin looked shocked when I came outside and I immediately noticed why. Torin's boyfriend was wearing my late husband's ring. Torin has apparently stolen it and given it to his boyfriend. When I confronted them, his boyfriend didn't even know it wasn't Torin's, and Torin had told him it was his dad's. Pissed I couldn't deal with this any longer, and since his dad went home to deal with him, Martin's away on a business trip, I told him to pack his things and I dropped him off at his mom's house. His dad called an hour ago saying I was being too hard on him and his mom thinks I'm overstepping and doing more than necessary. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, he stole your son's ring knowing it was important and gave it away to someone else. He is the idiot. You didn't abuse him, but sent him to his mother's place. It's not a harsh punishment at all to remove him so he doesn't bully your son. You have a right to hold him accountable as his guardian of the moment. If you are not his guardian, then you were also right to send him to his mom. You have more problems than his stealing and bullying if your husband doesn't think anything wrong happened or that there shouldn't be any serious consequences for disrespecting his stepbrother. He doesn't respect or care about your son. Absolutely not the idiot, but your husband is the idiot for not stepping up and letting it get to this point. Your son should be just as much as now and him having to walk an hour and a half because the stepson forgot. Unacceptable. Should have had a very serious talk with him about responsibility then. Now he's stealing from his brother, prized possessions no less, causing him great distress, and thinks it's okay to give them away. A line's been crossed, and right now your son needs you to be his advocate because who knows what else he's been putting up with from him, especially at school away from supervision. Even if it means pushing back against your husband. This little punk stole from you. Sending him off to his mother seems the calmest and most rational thing to do in this situation. And you and his dad have been married for what, 4 years now? He needs to get over himself. He says you'll never replace his mom, yet spends more time with his dad than her anyway. This might be mostly teenage jerk behavior, but the stealing is unacceptable. Also, I'd lock away all your mementos of your late husband just to be safe. My wife and I are in our late 30s and have 2 girls, 14 and 16. My wife works in a pretty high-stress position that often requires a lot of travel, sometimes up to 2 full weeks a month. But the job is in her desired field and she's worked hard to get to where she is, and it pays well, which is a plus. I work a lower stress job with more flexible hours, but it doesn't pay as well. Because of my wife's job, I have been the parent that attends to most of our kids' needs. I take them to their activities, I attend all the games and recitals, I take them shopping, taught our oldest how to drive, etc. A few weeks ago my wife got a job offer from a client of hers that she's worked with for years. It would be a more stable position that would pretty much eliminate her travel and would also come with a nice bump in pay. The only problem is that the job is literally across the country. Like 2,000 miles away. When she told me about it, she was beyond excited because this job would finally give her a chance to be at home with our girls again. She was talking about it like it was already decided that she would take the job and we would move. I tried to share in her initial excitement, but all I could think of was leaving behind the life that the girls and I had built here. My wife sensed that I wasn't as enthusiastic about the job as she was and asked me what was up. I told her that the girls are at an age now where uprooting their lives and leaving all their friends behind would be a pretty drastic change, and we needed to get their input before making any decisions. She agreed and we spoke with them. Both of the girls wanted to stay where we are. Neither liked the idea of moving and starting in new schools. They like their friends, they like their school, they like their sports and activities here. My wife got upset and tried to convince them how much better it would be for her to have a job that actually allowed her to be present in their lives again. But my oldest pretty much told her that she was being selfish for asking them to uproot their lives just so that she could feel better about herself. My wife broke down in tears after the talk and confessed to me that she thought this new job would be an easy decision for us and I should help her convince our daughters that it was the right choice. I told her that I wasn't going to do that. I told her we should wait until the girls are done with high school before moving across country like that. She said this kind of job opportunity doesn't come around that often, and if she doesn't take it then she doesn't know if she'll ever get a chance like this again. She said she felt like I was forcing her to choose between her family and her career, and I told her that's pretty much exactly the decision she needs to make. She asked what would happen if she took the job and I told her I would probably stay here with our girls. She called me an idiot and now isn't talking to me. Not the idiot. Your wife is a career woman and she's seeing the effects of being a career-focused woman. Just like men who neglect their families for their careers, she is seeing the consequences of doing so. Your daughter was correct. Your wife is using the job and the opportunity to be home more to make herself feel better about her years of being absent. It was a family discussion and most of the family did not side with her. She cannot manipulate and gaslight you or your daughters into submitting to her will. You need to continue discussing it. Moving during high school may not be ideal, but it's not rare and it's not life-ending. They're going to go off to college anyway, they'll make new friends, that's how life works. They can keep in touch with their current friends, see them on vacations, etc. I still see my old high school friends a couple times a year, and it's been a decade since any of us were in school. So that shouldn't really be the deciding factor. I agree with the other person who said you guys should take a trip out there as a family. Check out some areas where you might live, drive past the schools, etc. Seeing it makes the possibility less scary. The unknown is the worst part. Waiting to move until the kids are done with school defeats the purpose of her being able to be home with them. Are they both going to go to a local college? Stay at home forever. Why not have her go and set up home there and let the girls finish the semester where they are? With social media it's way easier to keep in touch, but again, they'd be leaving in a couple years anyway. Your wife will presumably be working for years. When the kids are gone and your wife is gone all the time, are you still going to enjoy this arrangement? Especially if when she is home she's burnt out. 18 months ago my dad died and 9-ish months ago my mom and my uncle, dad's brother, started dating each other. I, 17, will be 18 when they get married, and I decided pretty much from the start of their relationship that I wouldn't play a part in it. My older sisters both refused to speak to our mom or uncle anymore, and they won't be going to the wedding either. But since I'm still technically a minor now, my mom thinks she can still make me go. She either doesn't remember that I will have already turned 18 when the wedding happens, or she doesn't care. Either way, she keeps trying to engage with me on the wedding, has cried over mine and my sister's lack of involvement, and how she hates being punished for being happy, how dad would want this for her. My oldest sister told her dad would be disgusted that his own brother and wife were shacking up. Our dad did find that kind of relationship weird, and we knew that for a long time. He was a vocal commenter when watching a movie or TV series. I think it's both knowing my dad would hate it, knowing my mom has admitted to feelings being present for my uncle when she was married to my dad, and the fact it has happened so fast that just makes it feel so disrespectful. I suspect my uncle had feelings for my mom long before this too, but he would never confirm that crap. So anyway, mom was bringing it up, and 3 nights ago I was like, screw that, she gets to hear again that I won't be there and I would never be there. It turned into a fight and she told me she deserves better. My grandparents got involved because my mom told them about it and they said I am a disrespectful little ungrateful brat. That mom deserves happiness, and no matter how long it took, my dad is dead, and his memory is not more important than the wants, needs and feelings of the living. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. As long as you aren't being rude when you're telling your mom that you will be an adult at the time of the wedding and you will not be attending, then you are fine. Your mom can marry who she wants, when she wants, but that doesn't mean her children have to approve or attend the wedding. Your grandparents should also remember that while your mom deserves happiness and is allowed to move on, that doesn't mean you are being disrespectful if you don't want to endorse the marriage. You are allowed to have your own opinions. You don't have to attend anything if you don't want to, and it's okay if you're still so wrapped up in your dad's passing that you feel you can't be a part of this. But your mother is also just trying to find her own happiness and way forward, and she's not wrong for wanting her daughters to be part of her life. Unfortunately, what your father would think or want is pretty irrelevant now. He's dead and he won't be coming back. Your mother deserves to be happy regardless of how you feel about her choice of partner. If you're nearly 18, she can't possibly be all that old and probably has decades left to live, so expecting her to be alone and mourn the rest of her life just isn't reasonable. I think it would be one thing if they married each other for practical, non-romantic reasons. My neighbor married another woman about 6 months after his wife of 50+ years died. At this time they were both at least 80 years old, and my neighbor knew he was likely going to die within 6 months from stage 4 cancer. Since his kids and grandkids had all moved away and had no issues with not getting his house, he married a widowed friend of his so she would have benefits and a home after he passed. I am 27, getting married in March. No invites have gone out yet, nor has a seating plan been arranged, but my sister, 39, has already pulled me aside and asked me to use my wedding to help her out. So she and James were together from childhood and they had my nephew Sean and niece Lee together. Sean is 21 and Lee is 19. James died when they were 7 and 5 and my sister met her husband 2-ish years later. They got married after 3 years of dating. My sister's husband had 2 daughters and a son with his ex-wife. They lived primarily with him, and I think they believed the circumstances would make for a Brady Bunch reality. Only it didn't work like that. The kids didn't blend, and despite my sister and her husband attempting to forge bonds with their individual stepkids, nothing stuck. The kids resented the hell out of the attempts. His oldest essentially cut them all off for it when she turned 18, and she hasn't been seen since, about 6 years. The other 4 between them still speak to their parent and step-parent, but there is no anything between step-siblings really. My sister wants me to invite all 5 of them and to make sure the 7 of them get seated at the same table with nobody else, so they will be forced to interact and break the ice. She even suggested I don't give them a +1, so it puts more pressure on them. I told her no. I told her I don't want a fight breaking out at my wedding, but I also don't want to deceive them that way. Because she will do everything to keep it from the kids. And I am close to Lee and Sean. I'm their aunt, but I am pretty close to their age, so we were always tight. My sister told me I should be doing everything to help her. Then she slung insults my way, and now she's texting me all the time saying I need to be reasonable. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If you suspect it will cause drama on your wedding day as well as added stress, you're well within your rights to say no. The kids always resented these attempts in the past, so what makes her believe that it would be a good idea to rinse and repeat what has not worked in the past? She needs to woman up and invite the family together herself and be honest about wanting to bury the hatchet and see them all. But sometimes old feelings die hard and she can't use your wedding for her own selfish desires. That's not what your wedding is for. Your sister didn't learn her lesson from before. Life isn't a sitcom or a rom-com or whatever where you can just force people in proximity and they'll suddenly realize that they really do like each other. It's unrealistic and disrespectful to their actual feelings. Frankly, you are helping her by refusing to do something that would only make them more resentful of each other, your sister, and you too. Your sister needs to learn to see her stepkids as individuals with their own thoughts, feelings, and perspectives who will make their own decisions, and she needs to stop dragging other people into her schemes. You have a good reason for not wanting a family reunion and that they might seriously start a fight at your wedding. And that's no place to have a fight or a family reunion. Even if they would behave and not fight, there is bound to be a lot of tension and awkwardness at the wedding, causing the guests to be uncomfortable and ruining the vibe. Your sister is being the idiot for wanting to use your wedding as the setting for a tension-filled family reunion. I, 34, went to Stuyvesant High School in New York City. For those who don't know, the school is in Lower Manhattan, just a few blocks from where the Twin Towers stood. Those of us who were in school that day saw everything on 9/11. I was 14, and it was truly the most horrific and traumatic thing I've lived through. I heard the first plane and saw the second plane crash. I saw the people jumping from the buildings. That's what really still gives me nightmares to this day. I smelled the smoke. I heard the roar as the buildings came down. I and many of my former classmates still suffer health problems from having been in the area and from having likely returned to the school building before it was really safe to do so. As you can imagine, with the 20th anniversary approaching, I've had a lot of, well, feelings. I now live in a suburb of New York City and was invited to speak at a local commemoration ceremony tomorrow. I also have been sharing my thoughts on social media. My in-laws, mainly my brother-in-law, but mother-in-law is backing him up, have been complaining about my posts. They say that I shouldn't talk like a survivor because I wasn't actually in either of the buildings and that I'm making it about myself and taking away from actual survivors, and also that it's just over the top. I will grant that maybe it is a little over the top, but I still suffer both physically and mentally to this day. I was deeply impacted and forever changed, as were my classmates. You can't witness something like that and not be. I wasn't in the actual buildings, but I was right there and saw it all. But I don't know, maybe I can't and shouldn't consider myself a survivor. Maybe I should tone it down. My husband says I'm right, but that I know how his family is, they get very uncomfortable from emotional stuff, and I should be more mindful of my posts. So, am I the idiot for talking about my 9/11 experience as, I think, a survivor? Not the idiot. Your in-laws are horrible for trying to minimize the effect this had on a child. Damn, I imagine many of your teachers from school have the same issues you and other students do. It is not your in-laws' place to gatekeep tragedy and trauma, full stop. Putting aside my opinion that your trauma is completely justified, even if I agreed with your in-laws, I would never have the gall to say so out loud. You're not the idiot here. You were young and close to the towers. Your young brain experienced something more traumatic than most people will ever even begin to understand. Are you a survivor of the buildings? No. Are you a survivor of the event? Yes. Please be kind to yourself and ignore those around you who seem to discredit your experiences. You were a child, for God's sake. Sending so much love to you. You really are a survivor. It is a fact that people in the vicinity of the attack who were exposed to the smoke and toxic material from the destruction of the towers suffer from health problems. And no one should take away from the mental trauma you also felt. Would someone say that, if you didn't die in a nuclear bomb, but you were in the vicinity and got exposed to radiation, that you have no right to talk like it affected you? Your in-laws seem to have really narrow minds, so I would try your best to pay their words no mind. I'm really sorry to hear you have health problems. Sending you good thoughts.